All right, 30 seconds to go. So if you could kindly mute yourself if you're not talking, that'd be good. Yeah. Okay, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Okay. All right, dear delegates, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the COTI 2021 Meet the Editors sessions. Yep, we trust that you have enjoyed the invigorating COTI sessions over the last few days. If you are interested in gaining insights into research publications, editorial secrets, manuscript acceptance, tips and tricks, you will not be disappointed in this session. My name is Dr. Edmund Goh from Edith Cowan University, and together with my lovely co-chair, Liz Oliver from Newcastle Uni, we will be asking the chief editors some tricky, interesting questions about their journals and research-related perspectives. Thank you for submitting your questions over the past 2 months. We have received overwhelming response in a total of about 50 questions. So those questions were definitely in line with our session theme, as you can see, questions that you or your friend has always wanted to ask an editor, but were too afraid to ask. So don't worry, Liz and myself have been carefully selected by COTI to take on this dangerous responsibility. So hopefully Liz and myself will not be ostracized and blacklisted from these journals after this session. Yeah. So on a serious note, we have an exciting panel lined up for you this afternoon. Yeah, with 11 chief editors from 10 esteemed journals in tourism, hospitality, and events. Together, they have a combined H index of over 1,000 and over 200,000 citations, something that we can only dream of. Yep. And each chief editor will be given 60 precious seconds to introduce their journal. And this is followed by 2 questions from Liz or myself in under 3 minutes. And throughout the presentation for the delegates, if you have any questions for any of the editors, please feel free to post them on Events Air in the chat column. And we will use them at the end during the Q&A session. So without further ado, let's welcome our very first panelist, the Chief Editor of Annals of Tourism Research, Professor Sarah Donicha. Sarah?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to talk about Annals of Tourism Research and Annals of Tourism Research Empirical Insights. And I'm the co-editor-in-chief together with Scott McCabe of both journals. Now, Annals you're probably familiar with because it's been around for a very long time. The aim of Annals, so any paper published in Annals needs to make a significant contribution to theory or to method in the field of tourism. So that's all pretty simple. And that brings me immediately to Annals of Tourism Research Empirical Insights. One of the reasons we decided to start this journal, which is a little sister journal to Annals as we call it, is because we found a lot of really interesting papers in Annals, which did not contribute to theory. But still, they had very interesting empirical insights. And we felt it was a terrible shame not to publish them, not to amplify those voices as much as we amplify the voices of people who contribute to theory. So that's really the difference. So there's no compromise in quality. Both journals are publishing high quality research. As far as I can tell, after a year of empirical insights, the rejection rate is probably pretty close to similar, including I got rejected from both, I can proudly share with you. But it's very much a difference in the aim and scope. So Annals is about theory development and new methods. Annals Empirical Insights is about exciting empirical insights. For example, I'll give you an example just quickly, which is You just change the kind of garbage bin in the kitchen, and you can massively reduce plate waste. That's not a major theoretical insight, but actually it's a really, really interesting insight that has practical implications. All right, I'm not going to waste too much of your time. I'm going to tackle those tricky questions Edmund and Liz prepared for me. What new methodological trends do journals currently prefer? And should we use innovative or established methodologies? Any thoughts? Well, that is a very simple question, Edmund and Liz, and you will not be banned from publishing in Annals. You need to use whatever methodology is suitable to answer your research question. So there's no, this is not a fashion competition. This is not a sophisticated stats competition. We're trying to answer research questions in tourism, and whatever the most appropriate, the most valid method is to answer that question is what you should be using. Actually, because I was so efficient answering this question, I forgot to tell you one thing about Annals of Tourism Research. Empirical Insights is an open access journal. So as opposed to Annals, which is a subscription model, if you publish in Annals of Tourism Research Empirical Insights, your paper will be visible by everyone for free. But after mid-year this year, there will be a publication fee associated with that. So a bit of a different model, and that's a trend we see generally in publishing. And that's me. Thank you, Edmund.
There you go. That was very fast. Yep. Well said, Sarah. I think that's very interesting to know that it's not really about it's not like a fashion contest. It's more about can you actually answer the research question using the appropriate methods and stats. So all right, okay. All right. Let's move on to our second panelist, and we have Professor Fezi Okumus. Yep, representing IJCHM all the way from US. Here you go, Fezi.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm the editor of IJCHM since 2007. I don't want to repeat the impact factor or all those things, but one thing I am really disappointed that in Australia, IJCHM was not upgraded to A+, A star. Despite our strong record in all areas. That's one thing I need to emphasize. We publish management of hospitality and tourism businesses related articles. Anything interesting, innovative, each paper has to make theoretical and practical implications. When I took over, it was more an applied journal. I strategically positioned it both applied and theory driven. So we receive around 1,500 submissions a year. We are very happy with everything. I have a very strong team. I think we can move to the next one, Insights. In 2018, we started a new journal, a Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Insights. Over lunch, the publisher encouraged us. Now, 3 years, last year in 2020, we received 246 submissions. This year, so far, I received close to 40 submissions. So I think in 2021, we will receive over 350. This is more, we aimed PhD students and junior researchers when we started, and also more applied. But over the last 3 years, JHDI has really become stronger and stronger. Some of our papers we publish in JHDI are stronger than the papers we publish in IJCHM. So I feel this journal is progressing really well. Last comment is I need a regional editor for JHDI from Australia and New Zealand. Anyone will be interested in, please approach me after this panel. That's all, I think. Okay. We can move to the questions.
Yep. So these are your 2 questions.
Okay. How do journals ensure that their review is objective given whatever? Each journal is different. What we do with IJCHM is our associate editors, they rotate, they look at each paper for formatting, methodology, writing, and then they desk reject on my behalf. If they have questions, I look at the paper. And then our second associate editor, he assigns papers to reviewers. And then we require at least 4 reviewers. So When there is reject decisions, fine. And then at the end, I look at all the comments, feedback from the reviewers. And when there are split decisions, I specifically look at, if needed, I invite our methodology editor. He looks at the papers. We try our best to be as objective as possible. I'm sure all my editor colleagues will say every journal accepts sometimes not so strong papers, and every journal sometimes rejects some good papers because of the process. Okay. The second question is, if my paper has been rejected and I disagree, will I burn the bridges? I don't think so. I think it's all about how you approach, how you write to the editor, and how you explain the case. If you are professional, kind, and point by point justify why the reviewers were wrong, why your paper is strong, I'm sure each editor will give you another chance. In IJCHM case, JHDI's case, I always look at the comments. If needed, I ask my associate editors to look at the comments, the paper. Eventually, sometimes I say resubmit, we go through the process again. So it's all about, in short, be professional, be kind, and be specific with your comments and justify. That's all. Thank you.
Wow, that's very good insights, because I think that's something that most, I guess, ECRs and PhD students think about. You know, should I really kind of challenge, or should get some feedback about why was it a rejection there? So thank you for sharing that with us.
But not so long emails, by the way. Okay, just to the point.
To the point, bullet points for Fazil. All right, next I'm going to pass on to Liz, who will introduce the next two panelists, please.
Okay, so welcome to Judith in Queensland, in University of Queensland. Nice to have you here speaking about the International Journal of Event and Festival Management for us, and you have 2 questions.
I do. So thank you very much, Lizette and Edmund, for facilitating this, and obviously all the other colleagues for taking part. So yes, I'm the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Event and Festival Management, one of the very few events-specific journals. It's not that long established, around 10 years now. So it's not perhaps, it's never going to be of the caliber of Annals or JTR, tourism management, that sort of thing. And we understand that. We're not trying to compete with necessarily with those types of journals, but we are interested in advancing event studies, and we're interested in trying to get event studies and event management out there as a really important part of what we do, and not necessarily just as a sideline. Which I think sometimes people do feel that there's a little bit of, you know, it's only events, and we're trying to counter that with trying to publish some good, rigorous information and knowledge in the field of events. And I have questions, but oh, here they are. Right. So given the limited number of events journals, is it advisable to publish in tourism and hospitality journals instead? Okay, so I shall tackle that one first. And I'll take you back to the answer that Sarah gave. I think it was Sarah right at the beginning, which is that you should publish your research in the place where it fits best. So it doesn't really matter that there are limited numbers of events journals. The point, I think, is that you should try to publish your work somewhere where it's contributing to an ongoing conversation, where you can be confident that your work is going to be read by people who are interested in using your work and citing your work. So not everything can be in the A-star top journals, but if you have an events related project or event study that should be in there, that's really thorough and rigorous, then by all means publish it in a hospitality or tourism journal. But if you think that the focus of your research is something that is of interest to people who specify events as their area of interest, then I think that, you know, yes, publish in events journals, publish where you think it's going to make the most impact, where it will be read by people, where it will be cited. So, you know, publish where it fits best, I think. The second one is, what are the emerging trends in events research, and do we have any special issues planned? So 2 questions in one there, so you know, not sure about whether we're allowed to do that, but anyway. Emerging trends, really, there is a move away from event management and that purely management marketing kind of business orientation towards what you might call event studies, and towards perhaps the more critical approaches towards event studies, looking at drawing theories from human geography, from sociology, from psychology, other areas that are not so management focused. But there's also an increasing trend towards sustainability, particularly in terms of larger events. And also, of course, there is currently a trend for papers that focus on COVID. Please don't send me any papers that focus on COVID unless they say something interesting and not, oh gosh, we don't have any events because of COVID. Sorry about that. And do we have any special issues planned? Yes, we've got one in the works at the moment, which is looking at the links between or how events can contribute to achievement of the UN sustainability goals. That's the only one that's in progress at the moment, but I'm always open to people who want to approach me with ideas. So if you've got ideas for a special issue, feel free to get in touch.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. And you're right on time. So that's really good, especially with those two questions in one. So now we move to South Australia to Mariana Sigala. And Mariana, welcome and thank you to speak on the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Management, which is of course the Corsi Journal.
Thank you, Liz, and a big hello to everyone. It's really my privilege to talk about this journal, the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Management, as it is the official journal of COTHI. I will not repeat information you see here. I will just highlight that the journal is growing from strength to strength in terms of rankings and impact factors. This is nowadays reflected in the number of submissions that we receive. This year, they have almost doubled. We had the 125% increase in submissions. And it's also very good to see that submissions nowadays, they come from all over the globe. It's not just Australasia or New Zealand. We do have a strong presence in US and an increasing one in Europe as well. So I have two questions to which I would like to go very quickly. All the journals, and us included, we do desk reviews before we decide whether to review a paper. What am I looking, and I guess I speak on behalf of many editors, you only have as an author probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes to persuade me that your paper makes a really new contribution to the field. Replication papers, there are the ones that they are automatically or they're very obviously to be rejected. The new contribution has to be reflected throughout the whole paper. An attractive title, a very precise and concise abstract that says what is the gap, what is the new approach, or what is the new finding. And of course, a very attractive introduction, strong one, and a conclusion whereby you highlight new implications in theory and practice. In terms of the second question, how do you make multiple publications from a single data set or a thesis? It's a very good question because we all try to make as much impact as we can from the resources and the time that we invest in research. We want to publish more, but this might lead us to what is usually called with different names. Some people, they call it self-plagiarism, salami publishing, recycling of content, or text recycling. I don't have the magic formula to say to you what to do, but I have some very good tips to you, what you should not do based on what is also not only professional and ethical, but also legal. Because a salami publishing can also lead you to research misconduct and of course blacklisted. Publicationethics.org, it defines salami publishing as papers which cover the same population, methods, and question. What does this mean? It means that even if you have the same data set, probably the starting point will be, do you have a different research question to answer? This will be the starting point whereby you can then reformulate and design a different paper with different theories, different justifications. Elsevier, it defines salami publishing as when an author writes about his or her own research in 2 or more articles from different angles or different perspectives of the research without acknowledgement of the original paper. Now, what does this mean? It means that even if you examine the same research question, but by using different approaches, you can publish it in different papers, but you need to ensure that each paper cites each other. And you acknowledge—
Mariana, the bell is unfortunately gone. You've got about 30 seconds to wrap up if you can.
And probably 20 because of that. Yeah, it says redundant publications is when you publish a study in multiple outlets without even informing the editor. Well, implication first, if you have published something similar, do inform the editor in terms of where this has been published or not. And if you do wish to publish additional papers, the key criteria, make sure that every single paper makes a more than incremental increase of understanding and new insight of the research question that you have. If there is no increase in understanding, don't do it. That's my tip.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Mariana. Perhaps after we could go back to that question, because that came up on many occasions by many of the students. So we could revisit that.
And
yes,
share
fantastic.
Citations or references. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'll hand over to you, Edmund.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Liz. All right, so our next panelist is Professor Wang Youchen, who is the Chief Editor of Journal of Destination Marketing and Management. And he's joining us from the US, where the time, I believe, is just past 12 midnight. All right, take it away then.
Thank you, Edmund. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with the conference and with the audience. As Edmund just mentioned, this is really midnight, after midnight actually, in the US. Typically this is my sleeping time. So if I'm not talking about the right thing, and then please forgive me. We have a good justification, I think, right? So as Edmund mentioned, I'm the one of the co-editors of Journal of Destination Marketing and Management. We have a team of 3 co-editors, Alan Faya, also from UCF Rosen College. I'm also from UCF Rosen College, and then Brian Garrett from UK. So the journal is really about, the mission of the journal is really related or reflected by the name of the journal. So it is about every aspect of destination marketing and management. So we emphasize on both aspects of issues related to destination, i.e. management and marketing. So it can be related to policy related issues, can be related to marketing and promotion, can be related to economic impact, perception, loyalty, branding aspect destinations. So, it's a whole range of destination related topics. I know that we have a few other Elsevier journals. JDMM is one of the Elsevier journals, but probably we are one of the youngest ones, if not the youngest one. So the journal was actually set up in 2012. But one of the facts we are kind of proud of is that after 3 years of establishment of the journal, we made that journal into SSCI. I know that this is important for some of the audience. Maybe it is not important for others. And of course, that is one of the driving factors for submission. So we started from less than 100 submissions to right now, I guess close to 700 submissions in a year, which is really not bad. I don't envy, for example, journals like Annals and Tourism Management and FEFSIS Journal receiving 1,500, 1,600, 1,700. Because we need a good balance of work and life. I think 700 is a good number for me to deal with. So we are very, very happy with that. So that is something about the journal. I think I have 2 questions. I don't see the 2 questions on the screen, but I remember the 2 questions. The first one is related to COVID specific related issues or papers submitted to the journal. In our journal, we really don't treat event, albeit, this is one of the major events. It's global, widespread, impact, it's affecting everybody, and it's affecting typically the hospitality and the tourism industry, right? But, we don't really give special treatments to this event. We just basically look at the quality and the merit of the submissions and make decision about that. I know some of the other journals put forward, special issues related to COVID-19, whether it's impact or whether it's behavioral change, whether it's product development, based on new ideas, innovation, contactless technologies, and so on and so forth. So we thought about that, and we decided not to go to that route because we believe that every case is a special case, right? What is more important is really the so what question. What is the pattern? What are the lessons we can learn? What are the generalizations so that we can say the same thing to other similar situations, right? So the approach we take actually is more of a crisis management approach. This is definitely one of the crisis management related issues. So that is kind of the framework we try to approach this specific issue. The second question is related to the future trends.
We just have another 30 seconds to go.
Yeah. So the second question is related to the trends. Some of the trends will be over there for some time to come. So when you talk about satisfaction management, performance, perception, experiences, corporate social responsibility, sustainability, all those topics will be over there. But I think because of the COVID and how it is impacting not only the behavior but also the mindset, there will be some new upcoming topics people will probably jump on and then commit their resources and efforts and time. Topics related to, for example, well-being. The definition of well-being, of course, can be related to the well-being of people. That is all the people behavior we are looking at. Can be related to visitors, can be related to the local residents, quality of life, the happiness aspect, right? So I think that will be really one of the main directions to go. The other one is really the corporate social responsibility, sustainability related issues. And then the third one probably is related to all these smart technology related, AR, VR, mixed reality. I think those will represent the future trends. So in a nutshell, I think when you look at theory, of course, we look for theoretical and in practical implications. When you look at theory, we're talking about macro level theory or meso level theory or micro level theory, right? But in terms of the research questions in the future, I try to think about that, in the same way, So all this research we do, what is the purpose of doing this research? All these, from a management aspect, all these things we do.
Sorry about that, Yushin. I'm going to have to jump in at this point. We might be able to just wrap that conversation up right at the end.
Seconds,
I'm sorry about that. All right.
Right, 5 seconds. So we have to answer that question, so what, right? So, does it impact people? Does it bring really well-being to the people, to the place? And does it bring happiness to people? I think, those will be really upcoming topics for years to come. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, Professor Wang. Yep, so very relevant of COVID-19 related questions. And next we move on to a technology journal. Yep, so we have Professor Jihan Kobanogu for the Journal of Hospitality and Tourism Technology. Yep, so also from the US, so take away there.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Journal of Hospitality Tourism Technology is a relatively new journal. I'm proud to be the founding editor of the journal, even though it is only 10 years old. Last year, it got accepted into SSCI, so we are very proud of it. Just like Mariana, the submissions after become SSCI index has more than doubled. So we used to have about 150 submissions. Now we are getting more than 300 submissions a year. And it's a specialized journal. It's not just general journal, but yet it has a great place, I believe, in our academia. So I also have 2 questions from our moderators. What's the role of service automation, research, Internet of Things, and big data, are they here to stay? When you look at the evolution of the hospitality technology, tourism technology, I always divide these era into three different pieces. The first one is from the beginning that starts the phone systems, property management systems, global distribution systems, electronic door keys in the hotels. That's like what I call tourism 1.0. And tourism 2.0 starts in 1994. Again, this is just my kind of like classification because that's when the internet came into our life. Hyatt Hotel got the first website, then voice over IP. iPhone was invented, actually get into the market in 2007. Radio frequency ID, internet protocol, TV, mobile apps, you name it. And that's the end of tourism 2.0, as I call it, in 2015, where now what we are seeing is augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, chatbots, smart payments, and with the COVID is the contactless technologies, robots, not just the robots for the service robots in hotels that we see, but also manufacturing robots like Flippy, the burgers, Sally, the salad bar, Brigo Coffee, Costa bought this company, travel robots. I mean, we are going to see people traveling with robots. So in terms of the question here, that absolutely it's here to stay. My second question is, what is your thoughts about the authorship? Single versus multiple order of authorship. My always advice to young scholars is that always collaboration is wonderful. I always support collaboration. However, I always tell the young scholars to be able to at least publish 1, 2, 3 single authorship articles to be able to show that you can do the research from A to Z by yourself. So it's usually a good idea, although that it is not necessary, at least in my university, for promotion and tenure. And in terms of the order of the authorship, the way that I do it, always whoever has the most contribution gets the first authorship. It's usually a good idea to have a discussion with your team members in the beginning so that there is no surprises later. But that's something that you have to talk. Communication is the key. If there is a change in author names in orders, that needs to be communicated clearly and why. I think that if everybody agrees in the beginning, it will be good. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Professor Chihan. Yeah, obviously, very interesting sort of thoughts about number of authorships as well, especially given that I think research has shown that we actually having more authorships on the paper as compared to 10 years ago. So that's very sort of useful insights. All right, next we have another technology journal. Yeah, so the Journal of Information Technology and Tourism, and we have Professor Phil Chung, also from the US, that will kind of talk us through this journal. Phil?
Thank you, Edmund. I'm alive. I don't see my picture.
Yes, we can hear you. Yep, there you go.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Edmund, for inviting. Information technology and tourism, we call it JIT. It's the first scientific interdisciplinary journal focusing on the nature and role of information technology within the context of tourism, travel, and hospitality. We publish both theory-driven and also development-focused articles, studies, because it was started by the computer engineering folks in Europe. We have published so far 22 volumes, 4 issues a year. It was owned by Cognizant before Springer. Springer is the publisher at the moment. So and there's some couple of years discontinuity of the journal. So this is why some of the search engines thought this is the new journal, because the indexing started just a few years back. But it's quite a journal with some quite history. And we welcome all kinds of research related to technology in the field of travel and tourism / hospitality. And technology evolves so fast. So there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of different connections between technology and behavior and management of travel and tourism. This is about the journal. I have two questions here from the audience. The first question asks, how does e-tourism fit into the current COVID climate? Well, this is a very big question. I don't think I can answer that for in 1 minute's time. But you know, as the crisis, COVID is nothing new. But technology definitely plays the increasingly significant role in the recovery and resilience of the travel and tourism industry. So if we look at what how technology can be brought into this kind of context, we have to, you know, have sort of the new kind of the paradigm shift, right? Technology now has the value dimension, and it has never been so urgent for e-tourism research to be more open, to embrace ideas and methods from other fields, to break boundaries and be creative. We think COVID actually presents many new opportunities. For example, last year we published two new special issues, one on IT and travel and well-being, another one, digital nomadism. Both are well received and are early signs, if you want, of e-tourism research on the connections between technology and the big problems in society, including you know, the COVID. The second question goes, some researchers feel that some journals tend to be biased toward authors from certain universities, regions, academic networks. Can you explain this? Well, I don't know. I can't speak of on behalf of other editors, but from my experience, it's never the case. Sorry to say this, but feelings don't matter. I don't know why some authors feel that way, but presumably I think it's a lot to do with the communications and misunderstanding. From the author's point of view, I think the authors need to understand how to frame a research problem. Sometimes they get articles or manuscripts framing the research question as, within the sort of the national or cultural context, which I believe does not do justice to the research itself. The authors need to focus on the problem itself. What's the potential contribution from a conceptual, theoretical, or methodological point of view, instead of saying, well, because of, say, China, I'm using China as an example, is the second largest economy in the world, so the problem must be really significant. And also we need to look at the journal from the journal point of view. All journals, I presume, have its own scope and flavors. So you need to look at the journals in terms of how it evolves, historically and in a holistic way. Like,
sorry to interrupt, Phil. Just to wrap it up, yeah.
Sure. Like our journal JIT used to be a Eurocentric with a focus on computer engineering perspectives of IT and tourism. Now it's changing. So the scope or the flavor of the journal also continues to evolve. So I hope it's not the case that there's any bias against any toward universities or regions or academic networks. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, though. Yeah, very interesting insights. All right, so we now move on to Liz, who will then introduce the next two speakers. There you go, Liz.
So it's the Journal of Vacation Marketing next, and welcome to Professor Perry Hobson from Sunway University. You'll be up first. Just a quick overview of the journal and then moving on to your question, and thereafter Gabby Walters will cover her question. Thanks, Gabby.
Okay, thanks, Liz. And good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you might be in the world. And so the Journal of Vacation Marketing is clearly positioned as an applied journal. And so ever since it started back in 1994, and I joined it as editor in 1999, so I've been doing the role for something like 22 years now. And unlike other journals, what we're really trying to do is to make sure that every paper has got a very clear implications for practice, for marketers. So I think that's probably a key difference. And we picked up a hearing from some other journals about the focus on contribution to theory, knowledge, etc. The key thing here about JVM has been that contribution to practice and the applied nature of the journal. All right, so as I said, I've been editor for 22 years, and it's been great to welcome Gabby, who's joined me as associate editor, and she's got the second question. But perhaps, Liz, we can go to the first question. We got there. And so the first question for myself was, what are the usual review timeframes for JVM, and what causes journals to have longer or delayed timeframes? Now, if you've been involved in listening to all our editors, I suppose it's a little bit like asking the Wizard of Oz to lift the curtain about what's going on behind the scenes. And it's been touched on a little bit today already. As Fevsi mentioned earlier, when papers come in, the question is, what do you do with them? So the first step is to look and decide whether you're going to send them out for review or just reject them. Depending on each journal and the flow, typically that may take us about a week while something comes in, depending on how quickly that comes in, when I've got time, when other people have got time, Gabby and myself to look at them. The next stage of that is to then decide whether we're going to have the reviewers. And then that's the next challenge, is to find the right people to review your paper. Now, after all, you may have a fairly standard paper. You might be taking something very cutting edge. You might be taking something that's quite new. So that presents us with a challenge. We go to our traditional reviewers on an editorial board. Like many journals, we have a set also of occasional reviewers who are well known to us. But sometimes we will need to go outside that, and that can take longer. So whilst I always like to get that done, this whole first end of the process done within a couple of weeks, absolute maximum within that, the reality is that sometimes it will take longer. Sometimes we contact people, and guess what? They don't respond. So then once we put the journal out, most journals have a set review time frame, and by different journals that will alter a little bit. Some look for 28 days, for a month, some looking for 2 weeks. It depends on the journal. Now, again, as I just mentioned, people take holidays, they take breaks, and there's different academic cycles through the year as well. So depending on where that goes, then that will go out. We then get that back. If we don't get that back, we have to follow up with the reviewer. Now, the reviewer, things obviously do happen to people, and they may not suddenly be able to review. We may then have to go for another review. Ideally, we hope to be able to get that back within that time period, let's say a month, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So then journals are faced with the challenge, do we get someone else? Once the journal comes back, paper comes back to the journal, we then get the question about is accept, reject, major or minor revisions, fairly typical. But of course, not always do the reviewers agree. So then the job of the editor or associate editor is to look at that and decide where we're going to go with that.
So Perry,
now, again,
I'm sorry, I keep stopping
sorry?
everyone. I'm sorry.
No, that's
we're
understood.
just rushing through. We have that many participants. We've got 108 people online, and it's exciting. We've got to move on to Gabby.
No
I'm
problem.
sorry.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Just to cut Perry's message short, if you're asked to review, really consider that, because one of the biggest shocks for me coming on as the associate editor was how hard it is to find reviewers. And what's the surprising thing is authors that even submit to our journal still refuse to return the favour and review papers. But that causes headaches. But my question is, what do I intend to bring, and what my future directions are for JVM? And firstly, quicker turnaround times. I think what Perry didn't mention was the journal has doubled in terms of submissions over the last 12 months. And for him and Julie, that was a great workload. So having a third person helps to push those papers through a little bit faster. For me, I see great aspirations for JVM. Really like to bring more global representation of the research out there. A lot of our papers come from China, Iran, Turkey, Spain, and of course that can limit, how relevant what we publish in the journal is to countries outside of those areas. More innovative research. Many of the submissions are replicating what we know theoretically already, but in a different context, and that's really not enough. it greatly limits the implications and relevance to others who are outside that context, and therefore the citability of the journal. So we're really looking for, and sort of repeating what Mariana said, we're really looking for contributions. We're looking for new knowledge, not just existing knowledge applied to new contexts. More innovative methods. I hold significant expertise in lab methods, psychophysiological research and experimental design, and really encouraging innovative methods. We're drowning in SEM papers. Really want to see the journal moving away from the SEM trend. So unless you have something really groundbreaking where such a method is essential to meet your research goals, then I strongly suggest, looking at different methods outside SEM. Yes, it's strong technically and it's clever technically, but we get a lot of papers that basically conclude that satisfaction leads to loyalty and positive word of mouth, and it's all done through a very clever SEM model, but it's nothing that we don't know already. If your implications are saying that managers should offer tourists a good experience in order to, get repeat business, then forget it. Like, we're really looking for innovative, groundbreaking research in the field of destination marketing. So make sure your research is relevant to destination marketing and consumer behaviour, and more importantly, will be relevant in years to come. So that's all I've got to say. Time's up, I think.
Thanks so much, Gabby. And over to you, Edmund.
All right, thanks a lot, Liz. All right, so our very last live panelist, is Professor Kathy Su from Hong Kong Poly U, and she is the Chief Editor of Tourism Management. Take it away, Kathy.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick. Tourism Management, as the name implies, it's a management-focused journal. Everybody's talking about how many papers that they received. Last year, we got just a bit over 1,900 submissions in 2020. We do have a team of editorial members. We, myself as the editor-in-chief, and we have a managing editor, Dr. Sang-Wan Park, and then we have 3 regional editors, one looking after America, one look after the Europe, and then one for Greater China. Myself take care of the rest of the world. So we do have a team of 5 looking at the submission. Last year, we published 6 volumes, probably 160, 170 papers. So that's about the journal. The 2 questions. First one, what are the most important elements? Can I have, what are the most important elements to adhere to for a manuscript to be accepted in tourism management? Like many of the previous editors, we're looking for innovative, original concepts. Needs to be based on a real management issue because it is tourism management. Since last year, we asked the author to provide an impact statement. Impact statement is not the same as abstract. Impact statement is to tell the audience what impact this piece of research can contribute, not only to the academia, but also to the management, to the society, or even tourists. So we want to see impact for research. We also prefer to publish papers using multiple sources of data. If it's only a cross-sectional survey study, usually the paper tends to get that's rejected. We look at, could be multi-method, but if you do quantitative, that's fine. We're looking for more than one data set, more than one cross-sectional survey, so that you offer some evidence of external validity of your finding. We would like to look at papers that contribute to theoretical advancement, contributing new knowledge. I understand different disciplines have different ways of contributing to new knowledge and push the boundary of tourism knowledge, but at least we look at theoretical advancement. We don't publish papers that are purely data driven. I know there are so many big data sets available now, especially with social media. We see a lot of text mining of reviewer postings. We get lots of those, but we're looking for, that's fine as a method, but we're looking for what do you do with data and what new knowledge can you create for the tourism discipline. So we really want to push the boundary of tourism knowledge. It will be helpful, it's a technical thing, but it will be helpful for the authors to do a similarity check before you submit your manuscript. I'm sure many of the universities have access to programs. It doesn't have to be a particular program, but it will be a shame if it's a good piece of research yet gets rejected because of the high similarity percentage. The second question really relates to the sister journal. Actually, Tourism Management Perspective was launched maybe about 10 years, close to 10 years ago, and now it's a very respected journal in its own rights. Anyway, so Tourism Management Perspective was launched about 10 years ago because at that time, the editor-in-chief, Professor Chris Ryan, felt like we're getting so many good submissions, but tourism management at that time cannot publish that many papers because of the page limit. Therefore, there is that tourism management perspective now, but very quickly that journal has been doing very well, and Catherine has been doing a great job. So it's no longer a little sister, but still in the system. So from time to time, when we see a paper that's more appropriate for the tourism management perspective, for example, it's an applied piece of research offering some really interesting insights, we don't see that paper as a fit for tourism management, we may recommend to the authors to take the transfer offer. And that could happen before the review or after the review.
All right.
So basically that's it. Should you take it? The advantage is you don't have to go through a resubmission process again. So saves the author some time.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kathy. That was very insightful sort of like knowledge about the relationship between TM and TMP. All right. We have just one last chief editor of a journal, Professor Dimitris Bouhalis. Unfortunately, Dimitris is not able to join us. However, he has recorded his questions, his answers about how to actually maximize your citations and what is his secret formula to maximize his citations. I think he has about 30,000 citations. So Liz will share this video with you on the hyperlink on the guest comments. All right. All right. So we have the moment that we've been waiting for. Yep. Thank you for all your patience. Yep. So we would like to open the floor to the audience if they have any questions. So I think there's a couple of you guys who have raised your hand, and maybe we can start from that. Yep. So we have Fabio. Would you like to ask your questions? Fabio, Cassian? Nope. All right. Okay. All right. In that case, we will go to. Hello. In that case, we'll go to your comments, and while the panelists were talking, we came across a few questions. I think perhaps I could ask the first question. Yep. So I noticed that majority of the delegates were very interested in this salami slicing topic that we talk about. Yeah. So, and one of the questions that came, I think, from Ryan Young, I believe he's from Griffith. Yeah, he's saying about the number of papers from PhD. So there's an expectation that you should be publishing 4 to 6 papers from your PhD, and therefore he wants to kind of maybe ask, what's the is there any advice about salami slicing, and perhaps is it driven by the culture of trying to publish too many papers from a PhD? So I'm just, any panelists like to take this question?
Mariana? Or
Maybe I can take a
Sky?
shot.
I was swapping
Other
between
people.
Zooms, but happy to answer if you repeat the question.
So the question is about, perhaps it's about the culture of having to publish, you know, lots of papers from your PhD, all right, you know, as part of the PhD culture of publishing them.
Can I take a shot
Well,
about that question?
Sorry.
Yeah.
The Salami publications, they are in some way enforced by the pressure that we all have to publish or perish, because it ensures that we have more papers, so more chances that we are read and we are cited as well. And we want to increase impact and citation. However, the Salami publishing, it's not only visible in case of a PhD study, that you have one data set, one research, and you try to maximize the output from that. I've seen, unfortunately, people doing it in their whole career just by copy pasting or recycling parts of theory from one paper to another, or from a textbook to a paper and vice versa. I've seen people replicating SEM models, exactly the same structure from one research study and context to another, which is again a kind of a salami recycling. I've seen people replicating ideas from one industry to another, or from one discipline to another. People reading one paper from, I don't know, medical psychology research and replicating to tourism. So it's a widely, how can I say, applied concept. And because people are in some way creative how to do it, even software cannot identify it. Software can only identify salami publishing when it refers to recycling of content, because it identifies keywords in terms of how keywords are replicated in a paper. But there is no software to find out how ideas are being copy-pasted, how SEM models are being copy-pasted.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if AI will do it in the future.
Yeah, no, that's a very good response. So I think maybe it's about, I think one of the comments from the editors here is perhaps it's not to publish 4 to 6 papers, but maybe publish 1 or 2 good papers from your PhD. Then. Yeah. All right, Liz, do you have a question that you wanted to, that you have identified?
Edmund, there are many questions, and it's going to be very difficult for us to choose choose one question here. I've copied the chat, and what I thought is perhaps would be the best tack to this is after the session, I will distribute the questions, and perhaps we could ask the editors if they were willing for a few more minutes to reply to some of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you had a look at any of them?
Look, I think the other question that seems to be popping up very often in the chat is about publishing cross-disciplinary type of papers. So I think was it Stephen Mills, was it? What are the editor's view in terms of publishing in tourism and hospitality journals? That uses a cross-disciplinary sort of data or approach.
I just can say that this is, I think it is very needed, especially in the hospitality and tourism IT area, because of the fact that, I mean, even if it is not technology, the complex problems of today's world, in my opinion, can be solved with interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. There are different terms of it, can be solved with that one. So I encourage my students to be able to work with people from other fields, psychology, marketing, computer science. I think the outcome is much better than one can imagine, even though it might be a little bit more difficult because it's out of comfort zone to be able to do that. But I do definitely recommend that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think Liz made a very good point. So because I'm looking over here, I think we have over 50 comments and questions. So how about this? In the spirit of time, we'll conclude the panel session, but Liz and myself will go through all of these comments and we will get the editors to respond to them, and then we will reply to you guys too. All right. So once again, please join me in thanking our panel members for their insights and entertaining discussions. Yep. We'd also like to thank you delegates for being so awesome and engaging. We wish you all the best in your future research endeavors, and goodbye and enjoy the rest of COTI. All right, see you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joe.